Hi there, I'm Pastor Michael Schutz. I serve as Vice President of Lutheran Church Canada, and because I'm in that office, I also serve as the Chair of LCC's Colloquy committees. And I'm going to share a little bit with you today about what Colloquy is and how it works. So thanks for spending a few minutes with me today. We're going to walk through just what Colloquy is, who it's for, how does it all work. Colloquy is one of three routes to becoming certified as a pastor or a deacon in LCC. It's an alternate route to the regular residential seminary program, and that's important to note. Along with the Pastors with Alternate Training, or PAT program, which Pastor David Haberstock, who currently serves as the chair of the PAT committee, just did a video about that, and I would commend that to you. He also did some preparatory work at the beginning of that video, just talking about what makes a pastor, and so I'd encourage you to go watch that as well. But along with PAT, Colloquy is one of those alternate routes that we have in LCC for certification for ministry as a pastor or deacon. The word colloquy is a bit of an odd one to many in our world, but it is simply the Latin word for conversation. And so that's really what it's based on, and it's pronounced colloquy, as we talk about it in LCC. And so I want to highlight a few things as we go along here. Who is Colloquy for? Like, what does this process really entail, and who is it for? First of all, it's really one of two things, and I'm going to highlight a couple of these things along the way. One is it's for somebody who already has a formal education, that's the first thing, or experience in church work. So it's mainly, at least for pastoral colloquy, as you see, mainly for men who are already ordained as pastors in other church bodies and who want to serve as a pastor now in LCC. There are a couple of other categories of eligibility, and just for me personally, I went through in one of the other categories. I served as a deacon in LCC for 10 plus years, 13 years actually, but after 10 years you can become eligible to apply for colloquy. And there are a couple of other categories as well in our handbook, actually 4 of them. But that's for pastoral colloquy. But then we also have diaconal colloquy, and that is for somebody who might want to serve as a deacon in LCC, and it's for somebody with a bachelor's degree and experience. So in that case, there needs to be a combination of education and experience. And so this is for somebody who is not starting from scratch, as it were, when it comes to either pastoral ministry in another church body or graduate from another seminary, that sort of thing, or somebody who has significant experience working as a parish worker of some kind, and who may be interested in being certified as a deacon in LCC. So with just that brief overview of what it is, I want to share with you a little bit about how this works. And there are really 3 stages to this. The first one is application. So the first stage is that you would apply. And then this is speaking to those who may be interested in becoming certified. So you would make an application through a local regional pastor. So depending on where you live in Canada, you would contact your local regional pastor, and then there is a committee that considers the applicant's education and experience. So the Colloquy committee, there is a pastoral colloquy committee and a diaconal colloquy committee. And so depending on which application is made, the different committee would look at that. But that's the first step. The first step is application. The second one is then what we might call candidacy, or the program. The committee prescribes a combination of 3 things, and these are individualized to every applicant. So coursework is the first one. Proofs of competency is the second one, which is papers or interviews, other ways in which you might demonstrate competency that is not, strictly speaking, seminary coursework. And then thirdly, a supervised ministry, commonly called an internship or a vicarage within an LCC congregation. And so once you've been accepted into the program, you've been an applicant, you're accepted, then you would go through this time of candidacy, or the program itself. And then, assuming completion happens, then you become certified, and that becomes an important word. The appropriate committee certifies a candidate for serving either as a pastor or a deacon in LCC. So that's the third step, the third stage. I want to give a little bit more detail about each one of those. First of all, the regional pastor is heavily involved, especially at the beginning. So the regional pastor does initial screening with a potential applicant. If you're interested, you talk to the regional pastor about it. He'll assist with the application process. There is a lot of information we collect as part of that. And then the regional pastor is actually the one that passes on the application to the appropriate committee. And he will have sponsorship, and that's a key word as well. The regional pastor needs to be one who says, yes, I believe this person is well suited to be an applicant for Colloquy, is eligible and well suited for that. There may be an unqualified sponsorship, which means the regional pastor simply commends the person to the committee and saying, here's the application, I give sponsorship, I'm in favor of this. There may be a qualified sort of sponsorship though as well, where a regional pastor may say, well suited, but here are one or two areas of concern or things that really need to be addressed in the program itself, which the program is designed to do. So he may flag certain things in the application, but still pass it on. When that application then gets to the committee considers the application and then makes a decision about accepting the person into the program. And it's important to know that there are really two decision points in the Colloquy process. One is here at the beginning, when an applicant's application is considered, and then the committee says yes or no to accepting a person into the program. Just like in a residential seminary program, being accepted into this program does not guarantee completion. It doesn't make a presumption necessarily about that. So that's the decision point that happens later on. But there is a decision about whether the person is eligible and whether the application is sufficient. Presuming that that happens, then the applicant moves into that second stage of becoming a Colloquy candidate and enters into the program. What happens at that point is the Colloquy committee will assign the candidate to one of our LCC seminaries, and in general that's geographically based. So if a candidate lives in, say, Western Canada, likely would be assigned to Concordia Lutheran Seminary in Edmonton. Somebody who lives out east might be assigned to Concordia Lutheran Theological Seminary in St. Catharines. That's not written in stone, but it's typically the way that we do it. Being geographically connected to a seminary allows for a better connection there, and maybe facilitates in person even a little bit better as well. But one of the seminaries will then oversee the program as a whole. And the first step of that program is that the seminary will develop what we would call a program proposal, talking with the candidate and presenting it then to the committee. And what this program proposal does is compares what we would expect for a candidate to be completed, what we would need to see from that candidate to be ready for ministry in LCC, as either in pastoral ministry or in a diaconal role, and then compares that to what currently exists in terms of education and experience. And the program is designed then to fill any of those gaps, as it were. So a program proposal is suited for each candidate. The seminary will have, again, that combination of coursework, of proofs of competency, maybe some readings, maybe some papers, some interviews, that kind of thing, and then also a supervised ministry situation. That gets presented to the committee again for approval, and again, presuming that that is approved, or there might be some back and forth. Again, the word colloquy means conversation. But once the program proposal is approved and the program is set before the committee and the candidate, then the candidate completes it under the supervision of that seminary. All along the way, as I said, there's conversation with the assigned seminary, with the committee as needed. We're always open to that conversation. If adjustments need to be made along the way, one in one direction or the other, we're open to that as we go. Then once the program is completed to the committee's satisfaction, so the seminary will bring a report back to the committee, and once the committee is satisfied that the program has been completed, then the colloquy candidate becomes what we call a again, a certified candidate. And that is, again, it's an important piece because once that happens, then the committee's work is done and the next step is taken. So a certified candidate then is eligible for a call. And again, a couple of things here that we want to highlight. So eligible for a call does not mean that you will get a call immediately. Just like, again, in the residential programs, there may be the occasion where just because you complete the program does not guarantee a call. And so we just need to be aware of that the certified candidate becomes eligible, though, for a call to an LCC congregation or a member of the synodical family. And the committee then hands off the candidate, the certified candidate now, to LCC's President's Ministry Council. The President's Ministry Council is the one who kind of takes that and then runs with it. And the President's Ministry Council is made up of our Synod President and the Vice President and the regional pastors. The regional pastors are the ones who work directly with the congregations in the calling processes. And so a call then may be extended by a congregation, and a regional pastor may be involved in that as well. But once the call is extended by a congregation, so again, the call needs to come from the congregation first. The PMC acts then as the Board of Assignments to place the candidate into that call. So this is similar to how new seminary graduates are placed into a first call within our Lutheran Church Canada family. A congregation doesn't apply directly to a candidate, a Colloquy certified candidate, but applies to the President's Ministry Council, who then will act as the Board of Assignments to place the person into that call. Once a person is in a call, then subsequent calls can be placed directly to the serving pastor or deacon at that time. But the first one is a placement by the PMC. With that as an understanding of the process, and there's more detail I can share, but again, as just the basics, I want to talk about some keys to success for Colloquy, and really I would identify 4 of them. The first one is conversation. Again, it's right there in the name. Every candidate has his or her own combination of education and experience, and conversations determine how best to structure the program for any given candidate, whether it helps determine whether a person is a good applicant candidate to begin with. It helps, conversation helps along the way in terms of fulfilling the program, and then the completion of the program rests on that conversation the conversations that have been had all along the way. The second one is flexibility. The committees really need to consider carefully the individual situations in every case. Every situation is different, and there is not one set of classes, one set of proofs of competency, one context of supervised ministry that's going to fit for every candidate. And so the committee needs flexibility as well as the candidate. The whole program needs flexibility. It is a very individualized sort of program. The third one, though, is fitness for ministry. Unlike Pat, again, I would commend Pastor Haberstock's video to you on this. Colloquy is a general certification with no restrictions on service once a candidate is completed it. Pat does have some restrictions, but Colloquy doesn't. In that way, LCC congregations really need to be assured that certified candidates are as fit as those who go through the regular residential program. And so we uphold high standards for certification, both in the regular program and also in this Colloquy program. And so the committee, and then ultimately the PMC and congregations need to be assured that a person is indeed fit for ministry. The bar is not lowered, as it were. And so we do need to assure that there is fitness for ministry that is upheld in this process. And then the last one is diligence. And the reason I say that is because this is not a full-time program. Colloquy is not a program where a person just stops whatever it is they're doing as a job or family situation, whatever it might be, picks up and goes to seminary for a number of years. If a person was able to do that, we would commend that person, a man in the case of a pastor, or man or woman in case of a deacon, we would commend them to the regular programs that our seminaries have. But this is, because of the program's nature, a candidate is not starting from scratch. And so generally, a candidate will need to complete the program while working in some other capacity, maybe in an existing job. And so it really does require a high degree of maturity and capability in a candidate. And so it requires diligence, not only on the part of the committee to oversee and the seminary to oversee it, but on the part of the candidate as well. It is a non-traditional, as it were, program, but it doesn't require really any less of someone in terms of their diligence in going through it. So if we have those 4 keys, we have a successful process in Colloquy. If I were to sum this all up, I would say that Colloquy is a great blessing to LCC. Now, I personally have experience with this. I served as a deacon for 13 years and then went through pastoral colloquy. And so I'm admitting my own bias here, but I think it is a great blessing to LCC. And the reason for that is that it provides for men to become pastors and for men and women to become deacons without so-called reinventing the wheel. Again, they're not starting from scratch. But at the same time, they're still safeguarding the high standards that we have for all pastors and deacons who would serve in LCC. And so Colloquy is a route that we have that enables that to happen with some degree of flexibility while not lowering the bar, as it were. If you are someone who is interested in learning more information, and maybe you are someone who's interested in Colloquy yourself as a potential candidate, or if you're involved in a congregation who's going through a calling process and you want to know more about this, I would want to commend to you, get in touch with your local regional pastor or with the Vice President of LCC, who is the chair of both of the committees, and we can direct you and talk with you about that. We can help you get you more information, and if you're a potential applicant, guide you along the way to see whether you might be a good fit for Colloquy. So I would encourage you to get in touch, again, either with the Vice President of Lutheran Church Canada, the chair of the committees, or your local regional pastor to begin the conversation.